Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Please join in by calling 332 263 3300. That's 332 263 3300. And now, Mr. Davis.
Hello again. It's great to be back with you. The people I love, the people who call, the people who argue with me, you're all great. And I really appreciate you all and learn a lot from your calls and from your text messages and so forth. So today I'm going to discuss a subject, a subject that I haven't talked about yet. And in the past weeks, I discussed things that were imminently hurting us, made us miserable, and such as gun deaths and shootings of school children, and the war in Ukraine with all those killings, and the rising price of the gas that when we go to fill up our tanks, it never was this kind of triple digit $300. What is she writing? Anyway, I just got a note from somebody already. So I appreciate you all, and I love you all. Those that agree with me, those that disagree with me. Each at the end of each session, I become a little smarter, and if I stay on long enough, I really make it pretty smart. So let me start off by saying I want to address the feeling that everybody's going through now, the misery in the world, the challenges in the world that hurt us so much, and see if I can't help you deal with it in a positive way and overcome the depression or the feeling of just hopelessness sometimes. Is the world going to stay this miserable? Is global warming going to wipe us all out? As existentialism, the existentialism of the human race on Earth. There are so many issues that are so provocative and so hurtful that you wonder how you can stay happy. So I'm going to give you my ideas about how to do that. And also, I want to tell you, I've written a book recently. I'll show it to you right now. The title of the book is Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. How to be happy no matter what. I wrote it in conjunction with my daughter, Rookie Reynolds. And every day, this is day 150, 150 I just turned to. But every single day, it gives you a laugh because it starts with a joke, with humor, and it gives you some guidance on how to be happy that day and every day. So, what I tell you, first of all, um, what was that point? I just found a really great wisdom. Anyway, I'll repeat it to you later. But but let me start by saying you control your own destiny. It's what you decide to think or what you allow yourself to think that determines your degree of upness and happiness and joy and gives you a lift, as opposed to choosing to focus on the things that are going to depress you, the price of gas, the global warming situation, the the war in Ukraine. I can't even think of the whole list of things that make us miserable every day and challenge us to stay upbeat. So the secret is uh, one of the great philosophers at Harvard. His name skips my mind for a moment. Pointed out that the human being can't think of two things at once. So if you think of positive, and if you think of something that makes you feel better, that's upbeat, and smile, it's impossible to feel sad. And if you will recognize even actresses and actors that play roles, when they start to cry, say they get depressed, as if the part of the role is to to be wimpy and cry and depressed. They do become depressed, even though it's not happening to them. It's not their life. So the thing you can't control what happens in the world. You can't control the disastrous incidents that we go through. All of those are beyond our ability to control or to change often. But what we can control is what we think about and what the expression on our face will be. Will it be smiley or the sourpuss that reflects our inner feelings? And and that's something we can control. So the first thing, remember, smiling, laughing, acts of joy make you feel better. They ensure that you feel better and they prevent you from feeling bad at that moment. So the first thing to do is remember every day, put a smile on your face, induce happiness by your actions. The second thing is don't don't think about anything negative, because that's up to you what you think about it. If you start to think about something negative, change gears immediately. So if you're thinking of something terrible that happened to you in the past, which we all spend so much time reflecting on and saying, "Oh, what if?" and "Oh my God, why did that happen to me?" You're going to be always feeding on that depression and raising it again and again and again. So don't go. Look, it's like if you went to a resort or a vacation, somewhere in a vacation, and you had a miserable time. Would you ever go back to that place again? Never. So think of it the same way. You had a bad experience. Don't even think about it. Don't reflect on it. And if you must, then turn it into a positive. Turn a lemon into a lemonade. It's not always easy. If there's some things that are easier and some that are harder. But I I tell you, there's some that are you can almost never get out of your mind. If you lose a child or a parent that you love, it's almost impossible not to you know aggravate over it, not to feel uh, and depressed over it. But people have done, some people who had lost a child, it hurt them so much they wind up institutionalized. They wind up alcoholics. It ruins their lives. And other people have the same terrible incident in their lives, but they turn a lemon into a kind of lemonade. It's never going to be perfect, but they start a charitable institution or a foundation that's going to help other people do well, that's going to cure cancer or heart disease, or do something positive and be active. Activity is one of the best actions you can pursue or implement that will help you avoid uh, being depressed or thinking about all the things that might depress you. And so, in this book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back, the people that have bought it or that I gave it to, in some cases, call me all the time and they say it's changed their lives. They read up one page every day. It's got 365 days. So one other way to be happy is to buy this book, get this book, and you'll see immediately it'll change the attitude in your life. And attitude is everything. If you have a positive attitude, you can't be negative. You can't be. You can't allow yourself to. It won't allow you to be depressed. So that's the very beginning. First thing, do that, and don't worry about the things like that really don't matter. What's that statement about money? Rookie, do you have that available? The statement about money? Money doesn't, money can't buy happiness. What does that say? I wrote it down, but I thought of it, but I couldn't.
What's the use of happiness? It can't buy you money.
Give me the thing.
What's the use of happiness?
It says, anyway, what's the use of happiness? It can't buy you money. Find out how truly rich you really are. Join my program every week, and I'll explain to you how you should be happy despite all of the things that can depress you and challenge you every single day. Even when there's everything, people say, is everything okay? And I say, there's never a time when everything's okay. Even when there's peace, there's 4, 5, 6 wars going on throughout the world. There's poverty amongst children, infants. There's never a time when everything's right. That's the human condition. And it can change quickly if you take the right approach. I'll give you one example that really tells it the way God made the world and the way we can, in a split second, go from that worst misery, the worst torture, to the biggest smile on our face and feeling like we just had the most amazing and enhancing, emotional enhancing reward. And that is if you look at a woman who's giving birth in a hospital or wherever she's giving birth, 1 minute, 1 minute, she's in misery, she's writhing, she doesn't know how to, she's pulling her hair out because she's in such pain. And then within a split second, literally, when the baby is born, she's no longer miserable or got a terrible face that says, "Oh my God, I can't take it," and she's smiling, and she couldn't be happier. And that's true of every experience you have. When you're at the bottom of the world, just remember, in 1 minute, you can change your attitude, you can change your feeling, and things will always get. This too shall pass. Solomon said the most valuable philosophy that he had. He once gave 3 of his executive assistants, of his princes, the promise that he would give the kingship when he passes it on to the one that brings back the most meaningful, uplifting ring. So the 3 princes left, and in due course they come back, and one comes back with a ring that has the largest diamond in the world, and he hands it to the king, and he says, I got you this because you asked for the most impressive, the most valuable thing. This is amongst the most valuable thing I could ever find in the world. Then the second one comes back, the second prince, and hands him a ring, and it's got all kinds of jewelry, different kind of jewelry, uh, red stones and blue stones. I don't know what that's specifically called. All kind of birth, what are they called? Birthstones. It really shines and it blazes from all the uh, jewelry. And hands it to the king, and he said, "I looked all over. I went to every jeweler. I went to every uh, uh, diamond dealer. I went to everybody, and all of them agreed that I should go pick this ring up because it was the most beautiful, most exciting, most interesting they've ever seen." And he hands it to the king. Then the third prince comes back, the third executive assistant, and he hands him a ring, and it's very plain and nothing. He doesn't know. Are you? The king says, "Are you serious? Are you kidding?" And he says, "No, no." So he says, "Where? I don't see any jewelry. I don't see anything valuable. I don't see. What is it?" He says, "Read the message I wrote inside the ring. And anytime you get depressed or you get uh, down and you think it's the end of the world, or the problem you're going through right now is so difficult, it'll never pass. Look at what I wrote." So he turns it around and he sees in Hebrew, Gamze Yavor, which means this too shall pass. And the king said, "That's truly the most precious, most valuable ring I could ever wish to get." And he appointed him his successor. So remember that even when it's the worst thing is occurring, and it'll happen in everybody's life. None of us that live any length of time don't go through something that is either life threatening or life threatening to somebody we love, or some permanent disaster that we can't reverse. But you have to remember, this too shall pass. If there's a depression, even the terrible depression of the 1930s, it passed. If there's a war, it passed. It doesn't mean we don't go through a great deal of difficulty. And every failure it will pass, because if you just don't focus on it and keep on working on it. I think I may have mentioned this in past weeks, but Thomas Edison was approached by a man and was amazed that Thomas Edison had failed 1,000 times in his effort to create the light bulb. So he walked up to Thomas Edison and he said, "Man, you're amazing. How could you keep on striving and working on something when you failed 1,000 times?" Well, I give up usually after 2 times, 3 times, 5 times the most. But 1,000 times, he says, Thomas Edison said to him, "Who said that 1,000 times? Who told you that?" He said, "Well, the man says, well, it's common knowledge. Everybody repeats it all the time." He says, "I never failed once." He says, 1,000 times I succeeded in finding out what didn't work. And that's the attitude you should have. The Chinese have the same word for failure as opportunity. Every crash brings new opportunity. People got rich during the pandemic while other people lost their businesses. You got to keep your head up and keep working and keep doing positive things, and the rewards will come back to you. And I think I told you the story of the man who's walking along and he stops at a schoolyard and they're playing baseball, and the kids in the kid in the outfield is right near the fence. So he says, "Young man, what's the score?" So the kid says, 18-0. He said, "Whose favor?" He says, "The team that's up at bat." He says to the kid, "So why doesn't your team give up?" He says, "Give up? Why would we give up? We haven't been to bat yet." So that's the right attitude. You got to be upbeat, you got to believe, and then it will happen in your favor. Anyway, If you want, I can only tell you so much during this limited half hour, or a little more than a half hour if it's necessary. But if you pick up this book, you'll have 365 days of tremendous advice. I'm not trying to sell you the book, I'm trying to induce you to be happy. This is the book. It's called Happiness Guaranteed, or your misery back. So I guarantee it. If you're not happier after 10 days, I'll send you double what you paid for the book. Okay? Anyway, God bless you. I'm doing it. I wrote the book because I learned to overcome things and to be happy no matter what. And it served me well. And I wanted to help other people throughout the world to get that opportunity, that same knowledge of how to do it. Uh, what else can I tell you about happiness? I'll tell you something that was brilliant.
Don't you think that it's a big problem that people think everyone else is happy? What did Hanoch Teller tell you about that?
I don't remember what he told
You
me.
know what he told you. You know what he told you. He said the only really happy people. You always tell this to
Oh,
me.
yeah. This rabbi once told me, it's a great line, and it's true. He said, the only happy people I know are the people I don't know, or I don't really know. Because when I moved into my house, when I bought the house, when I first made enough money to get a mortgage from a bank and bought my house, after I got out of Harvard Business School, I was totally broke. I only was able to attend to Harvard Business School because they paid my tuition. I went back when I was 28 with 3 kids, and they paid for everything. They paid for my furniture, for my rent, everything. So, and I paid them back many times over, but I could never pay them enough for what they did for me. But nevertheless, when I left and came back to New York, I had no money. I had nothing. I moved into my in-laws' apartment with 3 kids, and it took a number of years working on Wall Street, getting a job at a major Wall Street firm. They promised me if I worked out well, I'd become a partner, which was really a big deal. As a matter of fact, they said they didn't have any Jewish partners. This was a very waspy firm. They never had any Jewish partners, but they're doing a lot of business with owners of Jewish owners of companies, of successful companies, and they were taking them public and financing them and so forth. So they said, we'd love to have, a Jewish partner like you with your record of being summa cum laude or and Phi Beta Kappa, and graduating from Harvard with distinction. So we'd like you to be that first Jewish partner. And that sounded exciting to me, so I did it. And I ultimately made a lot of money. I was very good at what they wanted me to do, or anything that I chose to do by my own initiative. And when I made all this money, I bought a house in Lawrence, Long Island, New York. And when I bought the house, the people in the adjacent houses were both builders, both very successful builders. As a matter of fact, one of them was president of the local country club, and he was the most respected and highly regarded member of this community. He had a big, in his case, he had a Rolls Royce in his driveway, and he had a house that he had built. So I said, and we back up on a lake. So I said, and there's beautiful trees and gardens and throughout this area where I'm at. So I said, this guy must be the happiest guy in the world. He has absolutely everything. I couldn't think of anything that more that I would ever want. And then the guy on the other side, his name was Zuckerman. he was likewise a builder. They built large apartment houses. Uh, he built uh, supermarket locations. What do you call those things where everybody hangs out to
Well,
shop in malls? And he was very successful. He had two sons, and he likewise had a big limousine um, in his driveway. A what's the expensive German car? The Mercedes. Mercedes. Thank you. He had a stretched Mercedes in his driveway, and I said, "Wow, this guy's really uh, got everything. The lake in the back of the yard, the house that he built for himself. It was amazing." When I lived here for a while, I got to know them. The guy on one side was Zuckerman. I found out that he had a grandchild, and he was living in an apartment in Long Beach, and the kid fell off the fire escape, a little girl, and was killed. That was the first thing. Then, then he had two boys, lovely boys, good-looking boys. They grew up to become lawyers, and they came to visit with me all the time at my office with real estate deals, with different kind of deals. One time, one of them came in and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Well, not so good." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I just got divorced, and I had a lovely wife, and everything was good. But my son went into my 17-year-old son went away to camp, and driving out of camp with his buddy, he was hit by a trailer truck, a giant trailer truck, and they were both killed instantly. So here he lost his grandchild, and he lost his son's his own daughter on his fire escape fall, and his grandson on an auto accident. And here I'm envying him of the how lucky he is. The guy on the other side, when I moved out here, I never could get time on the court when I lived in Brooklyn or in Staten Island because there was limited availability in the public park. So I wanted to play basketball. I had to wait in line to play with I picked two other people or brought two other people with me, two other men with me, and whoever lost the last threesome, I could pick two of the three guys who lost and have them join me. So when I moved out here, it was always a fight for a limited supply of time. When I moved out here, I went to there's this high school right near where I live, within a block, junior high school, that is like a colonial manor. It's bricks with. It looks like it's out of the time of the South and the big mansions. It's built that way with columns and so forth, and it has the facilities that you dream about. It had a tennis court, four tennis courts, handball courts, a baseball field, a soccer field, a running track, everything you could think of. And it was hardly ever, when I went over there, it was hardly ever used. So I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't be used, because look how lucky they are that they have ready availability. Then I found out the people in this area, they have so much money, they they belong to country clubs that have swimming pools and everything, and tennis and golf, and and others go to gyms where they pay for a membership and pay for a health aid or this is a rapist, a therapist, a physical therapist to help them improve their bodies. So I played with a kid who lived next door. He was about 14, and I was happy to have somebody to play with. And I was just starting to play tennis anyway, so I was happy to have somebody to play with. And I played with him for about a year. And then one day I come home Oh no, I left to California. I come home, and this kid, I was on a business trip, and this kid sitting in my kitchen looks out to his uh, porch at the side of his kitchen, and I see him in a wheelchair. So I asked my wife what happened to him, and he says, and she told me that while I was away, he had a leg amputated because he had it was totally cancerous, and they couldn't do anything about it. So, geez, you see how what a bad break that was for the family. And about a year later, maybe 2 years, almost 2 years later, I went on another trip somewhere else. I think I went to Singapore or Switzerland. I don't remember exactly where. And when I came back, he was no longer there. So I said to my wife, "What happened?" I forget his name now. What happened to that young man? And she says, "Well, while you were away, they had a funeral for him." So they had with two people that I envied. I thought they were the luckiest guys in the world, and obviously they weren't. So don't ever envy somebody else. Because count your blessings, count your rewards. People come to my office, and one man comes to my office. He was very rich, and then he lost everything, and he's all broken up. And I said, "Do you have any kids?" And he said, "Yeah, I have three kids, two girls and a boy." So I said, "Well, I'd like to ask you, if somebody offered you $10 million to take one of your daughters to India or one of the East Middle East countries or wherever, and they you'd never see her again, and she'd be a slave and maybe physically abused and put out for prostitution, whatever." He says, "I wouldn't do it for 20 million. I wouldn't do it for 100 million. I wouldn't do it for anything." So I say, "You see how rich you are?" I said, "How about if they gave you $1 billion?" That's at a time when nobody even had $1 billion. When I was on the Forbes 400, I was like 200 million. Uh, so nobody had $1 billion. If somebody would give you $1 billion, would you take it if they asked you just to shoot one of your kids through? You still have two left. Shoot one of your kids through the head. And he says, "Morty, I wouldn't do it for $1 billion. I wouldn't do it for all the money in the world." I said, "You see how rich you are? You just look at Forbes' luckiest, wealthiest 400, but you're wealthier than all of them. None of them have anywhere much near the wealth that you just described to me that you have. So remember how lucky you are and start working again. You did it once before, you'll do it again. And the real joy is working making the effort, striving to get there. Not when you finally get there, it's not always keep trying. I'll tell you another great one. You got to participate. You gotta keep plugging away at it. Ultimately, you make it. But a guy, a, a religious guy, says to God, "God, let me win the lottery. Let me win the lottery. I'll give half of what I win to charity. I'll give it to charity." And then the lottery comes up. He doesn't win. He's disappointed. But the next lottery, 3 weeks later, he again appeals to God. "God, let me win the lottery. I'll give 2/3 to charity." And the lottery comes up, and again he doesn't win. The next time he appeals to God. God, let me win the lottery. I'll give 90% to charity." And all of a sudden you hear a voice come to heaven, from heaven, say, "Morty, do me a favor, buy a ticket." You got to give God a little help. You got to at least buy a ticket. He can't help you win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. So you got to go out and work. The secret of my success is I work, 10 hours a day. And when I got more successful, I worked 12 hours a day and weekends. I didn't stop working. Did I have reversals? Of course, I had reversals. Every human being has reversals, but you got to go back and work at it again and again and again. You can do it. I promise you. Anyway, if you have any thoughts on happiness or anything else, I'm wide open. If you want to talk about guns again or inflation or all of the current topics that I depressed you with discussing in prior weeks. So don't hesitate to call. Even if you totally disagree with me, every time I get a caller that disagrees with me, I do research, and a lot of times I change my views or I become at least more knowledgeable about my own views or the correctness of my own views. So the ones that agree with me, of course, I love. They're easy to love. But the ones that disagree with me, I really do love. So please don't hesitate to call, or you can send a note uh, through YouTube, and I will respond to your notes. Anyway, to go on with this happiness theme,
How come so many people are so unhappy today? What's the reason? You had so much less in your time, and now in America, everybody has so much and they're so unhappy.
well, what I wrote in the book that I'm writing now is I'm explaining to the people that are depressed in this country and say, oh, things are so terrible. I'm on food stamps, I'm on welfare or whatever the equivalent of welfare is. I'm on rent support, and they say that so many of my kids are even going hungry. And I point out that the average person in the United States today is more endowed with positive events and positive experiences than anybody in the history, any king in the history of the human race, because they have when they go to the supermarket, they have the choice. Even if they come with food stamps, the largest choice, the greatest choice of foods, they can buy any kind of meat, any kind of fish, any kind of vegetable, any kind of, I'm talking behind before the recent weeks, but almost anything they wanted in the way of food or enhancement, cake, chocolate, candy, anything. And a king, they made a party when a boat came from China or the the Far East from India with different ingredients with what do you what do you call those you know different herbs and they couldn't even have meat because they couldn't keep it from spoiling. They had no refrigeration, so even if they killed an animal, if they didn't eat it fairly promptly, it would get spoiled. And so in food, any person, even at the lowest level in this country, lives better than any king. And then on entertainment, the king would get all excited because some troop was coming through his country or through his capital, through his kingdom. Some troop, whether it was a circus or opera, any kind of entertainment, they got all it. Today, the poorest person in this country, the one at the very bottom, can get more entertainment for about $65 if he can afford anything more on a black and white TV. And I think today he probably can get a color TV for about $90. I'm not sure about the lowest price you can get a color TV. Somebody knows, let me know. Call in. But and can get every kind of entertainment, humor, comedy, sports, news, debates, any tennis, baseball, golf, medical advice. I mean, there's nothing at all in this world that you can't get on TV today in the way of entertainment and knowledge. And with a computer, it's particularly, it doesn't cost that much even to get a computer. You can get all the knowledge available to any professor and anybody else throughout the universe. In terms of travel, a king would, if even if he got on a ship, he'd get to come to the United States from Russia, from Europe, from anywhere. It would take them weeks and weeks, and they lost much of the crew to diseases. It's unbelievable. Today, I went back from Florida, and I had to come back urgently, so I had to buy the ticket the day before. And I got on a plane, and I sat down, and I said to the lady next to me, "How much did you pay for your ticket?" She said, $80. I said, "Wow, you're so lucky. I paid $800. How come you got it so cheap?" She says, "I planned this." All right, I'll interrupt my thesis here because I have a caller that's been waiting. What's your name? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, what's your
Hi.
name? You
Sharon.
forgot your name?
Sharon Tulsi.
What?
Sharon Tulsi.
Okay.
Sharon?
Sharon? Okay.
Yeah.
What's
I
your
wanted to know you.
you want speak up louder?
Sorry. I wanted to know about the secret to happiness in marriage. I heard you had a long, happy marriage, and I would assume you have some advice for us, for our children to hear about marriage.
Oh, I hate to discourage you. There's no answer for that. No, no, no. Here's what
I mean,
we,
there are so many divorces today,
yeah.
Rampant, and it's scary when our kids get married. So I thought maybe you had some,
Well,
words of wisdom.
first of all, the reason I had such a long marriage is because I had a fabulous wife, tremendous wife. She didn't have such a great marriage because she had me. But but the secret of a great part of the secret is before we got married, we made up. She and I were going to have dinner out twice a week. So she went out Monday and Wednesday, and I went out Tuesday and Thursday. And then we decided we'd have separate bedrooms. So mine was in Los Angeles, and hers was in Brooklyn. So we never had a chance to even fight because when I was younger, it was long distance calls were too expensive. So we didn't make long distance calls, except to say that we're alive and well. and I once asked the rabbi, I go to these lectures by these rabbis, these words of wisdom that they convey, and they say to have a happy marriage every morning when you get up, Morty. The first thing you say to your wife is, "Sweetheart, I'm sorry." You don't have to say anything more. She'll figure out enough things for you to be sorry about. So that's the truth. If you say, "Sweetheart, I'm sorry," it starts the day off well. And the other thing you do is, if together you count your blessings together, and you say, "Aren't our kids great? Aren't our kids?" Even if we have problems, and you always have problems with kids, but they're coming on, they're improving with the efforts we have made them better. So we talk to each other about how to make our marriage better and how to make our relationship better instead of exaggerating our differences and getting in a fight. But we did have fights, but in the Old Testament, God said you should take God, to Adam. He said he needs a wife, and he should take on a wife as a helper against him, against Adam, as a helper against you. And that's the truth. Out of once I had a wife, I had everything because I got all the joy from her, all the agreements, all the support, all the excitement, all the laughter, and I got all the aggravation I needed because I got all the fights from her and all the disagreements from her. I didn't have to go out in the world, so you get everything in one package. Because I never understood what it meant, a helper against you, a partner against you. But it's true. You get everything in one business. In one. What else can I tell you about having a happy marriage? Just have a happy attitude, upbeat attitude. Help your mate.
Never go to sleep angry.
Oh yeah, it says the other thing that the rabbis advise us is never go to sleep angry. Never go to sleep. So one time I didn't sleep for 3 months. But anyway, uh, yeah, it's like everything else. If you work on that project, you're going to be happier. Perfectly happy, nobody is. Perfectly for every minute of every day, nobody can be. It's the world that we're not. Human beings are not made cut out that way. But if you work on it between the two of you, you're gonna, even when you disagree, you're gonna try to work out some middle ground or some agreement that a lot of times I didn't think my wife was making a good decision with the kids, but I knew she was smarter than me, so at least in that sense. And the other thing we agreed to before we got married, or as we got married, is she could take care of the big problems, and I could take care of the bigger problems. So I thought that was a good deal. She'll take care of the big problems, I'll take care of the bigger problems. So she took care of the kids, where they should go to school, how we should spend our money, what furniture, all the things that we affected our everyday life. And let me make the decisions of whether we should go to war against Libya or Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam. So you could see I made all I made all the wrong decisions. So those are the best clues I can give you. And if the two of you read Happiness Guaranteed every day, that one page, I gave a copy to a guy who's in the Forbes 400 or the Fortune 100 companies. He called me back after a while and he says, Morty, I read a page of your book every day. I love it. It helps me to get off the day on a high note. And recently, I felt so strongly about it. I walked over to the television. My wife and two kids were watching some program that they love. And I walked over and turned it off, put it on pause or mute. And they start screaming at me, Dad, that's our favorite program. What are you doing? I said, I just want you to listen to one page I'm going to read to you. And so they stayed quiet, they're respectful. And I read them the page and they liked it so much that it's become now a thing that we do together every morning before they go to school. And not only that, but he has since bought maybe 200 books to give us, maybe more, to give us presents around Christmas time when we shortly after we published the book. And he said it's so great because I send out every year hundreds, literally thousands of gifts, and hardly ever hear anything back from the people I send it to. Some of them do send thank you, I appreciate it, and that's about it. But they never during the year call me and say, I used your gift and it helped me this week or this. But he says, since I sent this, people are calling me back and thanking me for helping them have better days. And if they use it, as I believe they will, throughout the year, they'll remember every time they use it, they'll remember who it came from. So it's really something
so nice.
special. So that's another way to get a happy marriage. Just get a copy of this book,
Hey, thank you so much.
or call me more often for advice, and I'll. Somebody asked me, what would you do? First thing you would do if you were president of the United States, if you were made president of the United States, I said I'd resign. Anyway,
Would you say it's smart to make a plan for life, to decide to be happy?
yes, yes. Let me tell you a story. You got to make a plan. Three guys go to jail. Three men go to jail for 20 years. And the warden comes up to them and says, "You could each have one prize, one request. I'll fill one request for you for you to have in your prison for these 20 years. And and if you tell me, you'll have it in your prison the next day." So the first man was a man from the United States. He says, "I'd like a phone, a phone." This is days before, long before there was a cell phone. So he installed a phone in his prison, in his cell. And then he went to the second guy who was Italian, and he said, "What would you like?" He said, "I'd like what is a wife in, no, that bambino's a baby. A wife, what's a wife? Funny, no, but I know what it is, but I can't think of it. Anyway, like a woman, that's what he wants. So the warden brings him a woman. He locks in each case, he locks the cell. Then there's the Polish guy. He says, "What would you like?" And I can make fun of the Polish because my mother was Polish. So don't take it, if you're Polish, don't take it as anything but part of a joke. So the Polish guy says to the warden, "I love cigarettes. I love to smoke. I love to smoke." So the warden accommodates him and brings enough cigarettes, 20-year supply, fills up the whole cell up to the top with cartons of cigarettes, and leaves. 20 years later, he comes back, and this is where he wants to see what they did with what they planned to use for what he gave them. So the first guy, the American, he says, he opens the door and he says, what happened?" So the guy comes out, hugs the warden and says, "Warden, thank you. I had this phone. I traded the stock, traded commodities. I became a multimillionaire. Thank you." And he gave him a hug and a kiss. And then the Italian guy opened the door, and he really gives him the warden a hug. He gives him a hug and he holds him. He says, "Warden, thank you so much. My woman and I, we had 11 kids, 11 wonderful bambinos. It's so exciting. The best thing you could ever do for me. I'll never forget you for what you did for me." And it's the best years, even though I was in jail, the best years of my life. And then he goes, opens the cell door for the Polish guy, and he's standing there with a cigarette in his mouth. And he says, "Warden, could I have a light?" 20 years supply of cigarettes, and he never got a chance to light them because he didn't get a match. So you got to plan ahead. Always ask for a match. Not to burn it down the place, but to enjoy what you enjoy. Anyway, my time has been up for a while, so I won't impose on you anymore, but I do love to hear you every week. Morty Davis, the voice of wisdom, 6:30 p.m. Thanks for being involved. I love you. Tell your friends about it. And it's on YouTube. It's on all the other outlets. Instagram. I'm not even familiar with that. all the outfits that I'm on with. Anyway, have a great week. Have a great every day of your life. God bless you. Bye.